This was not the video I was expecting to make because Stranger Things Tales from 85 was a pretty decent show. If I'm going to need you to put the pitchforks down for a second, if you suspend all belief with the main show and think about this solely as a spin-off. I decided to take my time and gather my thoughts on the animated series before rushing to record anything, simply because I did not want to hate on the show for hating's sake. I want to discuss the show as a whole, which is the bad, yes, but also the good, and if I'm being honest, I do see the potential here in a very roundabout way that I will be discussing in this video. I wanted to watch the show because I was curious about what the story would entail and how or if it would tie into the main series. I honestly didn't think I would get past the first episode, but I was pleasantly surprised to have watched the entire thing and not get incredibly pissed off. So I see that as a win. I'm going to come off the bat and say that I did not look into anything else pertaining the animated series besides the first trailer we got, which was announced a while back at this point. So I didn't really know what to expect from it, and I think that may have worked in my favor a bit with having low expectations. So spoiler warning ahead, but I'm going to be doing something a little different when it comes to talking about this animated series in the form of a pros and cons list. So without further ado, in this video I will be discussing Stranger Things Tales from 85 pros and Stranger Things Tales from 85 cons. Stranger Things Tales from 85 pros. Things I want to mention first as pros for this show is that I personally really liked the animation style, art style, character design, and overall mood the show used for this animated series, especially with it set in winter in Hawkins. There were a lot of beautiful shots and aesthetically pleasing scenes that caught my eye, and this is my personal opinion, but I think they did a good job balancing out the vibrant colors of the show with the darker story, especially with the design of the new creatures the party had to face. Anyways, Tales from 85 takes place, in winter of 1985 after the events of Season 2 and leading into the events of Season 3 in Stranger Things. We finally see the party have almost a normal life with no threats of the Upside Down as they plan for their winter break. That lasts for all of 5 minutes before we are introduced to the new seasonal threat, which is these plant-like creatures that I'm just going to call plant demogorgons, as well as some new characters such as Nikki and her mum who get roped into the party's ongoing struggles against these new creatures. The party, or should I say Dustin, creates the Hawkins Investigation Club to track these monsters down and find out how they came to be in Hawkins if the gates are closed, without involving Hopper out of concern for Al and the government's involvement. Nikki's character introduction. So immediately, I think when the promotions for the show were first going around, we all saw Nikki's character and thought, who the heck is she? Because seriously, who the heck is she? I think it's still weird and a bit unnecessary to introduce a whole new character essentially in a prequel of a show with absolutely no mention of her in the main show, but I will talk about that more in the cons part of this video. Why I have her currently in my pros list is because, in my opinion, I think she's a pretty nice character. She has a swift introduction to the party by being the new kid in town along with her mother, who is the new substitute teacher in school. She saves Will from getting beat up by a ridiculously cliched bully and immediately is portrayed to be different compared to the other kids in a small conservative town like Hawkins, and is considered to be a freak. In my opinion, she's not overly played up to be some kind of beacon of self-love and acceptance. She's just a teenager who's happy in her self-expression, and in doing so influences Will to be the same. Her character is closely linked to Will for majority of the show and slowly pushes him towards being comfortable with himself and not to let other people get to him in terms of the bullying he's experienced. And that is mainly why I like her as a character, or a character like her, should I say. Just walk with me for a second here, right? I think a character like her was needed in the main series. Not even her specifically, just her character traits in general passed on to one of the main characters, especially in like knocking some sense into the party whenever they had conflict, which is what we see her do with Mike specifically when he got mad at Will for trying to include her in their party activities. And this is solely coming from my first impressions of her as a character. When I first saw her get introduced, I was really worried she was about to be like this weird, stereotypical amalgamation of a character, and that she wasn't going to have much of a personality and was just there as an insert. And I was pleasantly surprised to see her like actively converse with the party. I really liked that about her. Good character development and character dynamics. When watching the animated series, it dawned on me a bit later as to why exactly I took a liking to it, and that is simply because the party actually felt like a close group of friends again, working together, compared to the main show where everyone is constantly separated and doing things on their own. And that is because the story solely focused on the party and how they would go about handling this threat. We do get to see characters like Hopper, Jonathan, Steve, and Nancy in the show, and they do contribute to the plot, but the plot doesn't necessarily hinge on their existence in it, if you get what I mean. We see Steve helping Dustin capture and kill 2 of those plant demogorgons. Nancy helps the party sneak into a newspaper outlet to recover a picture that could expose 11, and Hopper is there to fill in his daily scare the living shit out of Mike quota, and then afterwards, they're gone. They don't make an appearance after filling in their roles to help, and maybe I'm just insane, but I think that was refreshing to me when it comes to Stranger Things specifically, and their need to take into consideration every single character. Here, it's just the party, so the overall dynamic doesn't suffer from it. In terms of character development, what I really liked and appreciated was how the animated series gave 11 more autonomy over herself compared to her older self in the live action, and also gave Will more independence in making friends with Nikki and standing up for himself. With 11 specifically, there was a moment where she had gotten injured while fighting these plant demogorgons and they were able to escape. During that time, Mike panicked and decided to come clean to Hopper about what happened while disregarding the threat the demogorgons posed to the town now that they were getting stronger. The party then became split between wanting to tell Hopper what was going on and going after the threat, especially Dustin, who wanted to do the latter and follow the demogorgons immediately. Max keeps reminding them that this is ultimately Eleven's choice to make on what to do, but before she could make that decision, Mike cuts in because he's worried about her safety and takes her to Hopper anyways. The party have become temporarily split because of that, causing Dustin to get upset and go off on his own, while the others aren't sure what to do. Once they get to Hopper's cabin, 11 confronts Mike and calls him out for not letting her make the decision she wanted to make, which was going after the plant demogorgons to protect the town. And it doesn't stop there. She calls Mike out and directly talks to him about how he is just as controlling as Papa and Hopper, even if he means well. I'm blanking on if she mentioned Max was right in that being her decision to make, but I really just enjoyed seeing her stand up for herself and directly communicating what she wants without being coaxed into it by external forces. I'm not saying she's never done that before, but in comparison to the main show, this discussion was so needed between her and Mike. And once again, I find it a bit crazy that this was in the animated spin-off of all things. When discussing Will, the show made it very apparent that they intended for him and Nikki to become fast friends and have a close relationship, breaking Will out of his shell a little. And I really liked that when it came to Nikki's character and what she did for Will. We see Will being the most excited for winter break as the party want to spend it playing D&D, of course, and because of that he wants to DM the next campaign, which throws Mike off a bit and starts building a bit of tension between them, which becomes more apparent as Will and Nikki hang out more together. Will mentions wanting Nikki to join the party and play with them in the next campaign, which sets Mike off, making him act hostile to it in a similar fashion to how he treated Max when he first met her. He gets a bit apprehensive towards Will and asks him to discuss it with the rest of the party before making his own decisions, and because of that, Will begins to feel caught between wanting to appease Mike and wanting to involve Nikki in their group. Will gets overwhelmed and pulls the fire alarm, landing the three of them in detention. Which is where Will confronts Mike about how he's acting towards him and expressing that he is capable of making his own decisions without Mike having a say. And overall, once again, I think these conversations would have added so much more to the main show, not just with Will and Eleven, but also watching characters like Dustin wanting to have the Hawkins Investigation Club as a way of keeping their adventures alive and not wanting them to end since the gates were closed, expressing his difficulties with letting it all go and feeling threatened by the party when they were disagreeing with him. One of the more interesting character developments, and I'm going to need you guys to take a seat for this one, because what pleasantly surprised me with one character in particular and the development was, wait for it, Mike actually listening to criticism. And get this, guys, treating Eleven and Will nicely. What? Mike using his brain in my Stranger Things show? Mike apologizing to Will and Eleven because he cares about them but doesn't know how to act, so he messes things up in my Stranger Things show?
You're right. I'm sorry, Elle. I was scared.
Yeah, live action Mike could never. Anyways, pardon my sudden outburst there, but to circle back to Nikki in relation to Will, she confronts Mike about his hostility towards her and his behavior towards Will, which leads to a very heartfelt conversation between the two of them, where Mike admits that he's just worried about Will given everything that he experienced and wants to protect him. I really like that the show took time to portray this. Overall, the show portrayed good conflict resolution without the need to drag it all out. And that is the end of my pros list. So why I decided to add these to my pros list is because of how it surprised me personally. I didn't think that the animated series would do anything more than surface level tropes when it came to portraying the party, so maybe I'm biased here in talking about this. Am I saying it's extremely well written and the best character portrayals to ever exist? No, but I just really liked how solely focusing on the party kept the story from going off the rails and added to the party's dynamic. It felt good to see the group as the actual main characters of the show. But now on to the cons. Stranger Things Tales from 85 cons. Tales from 85 in connection to the main show. Now, in terms of how the animated series holds up in connection to the main show, this is where things begin to get messy because of the insane amount of plot holes regarding the show, especially in terms of the characters. The show is expecting the audience to have already watched Stranger Things, so it drops you in with little to no proper explanation, therefore being absolutely not newcomer friendly. You are just thrown into the show unaware of any of the characters or reasons as to why anything is happening, and I don't understand the thought process behind that in particular. I know this animated series was targeted for a younger demographic, but what if that younger demographic didn't watch the main show? Even though they do give a little montage scene explaining what happened, it doesn't really encompass the entirety of the show, especially because it's only tied to a certain time frame, that being in 1985, which is outdated to where the show currently ends. And I just think it's a horrible segue to new viewers giving Stranger Things a chance, only to see how things turn out for these characters, especially Eleven knowing her fate. Even more is the plot holes concerning Nikki and her mum, who play a prominent role in the show, being involved and seeing these creatures from the upside down, as well as seeing Eleven use her powers. Which, side note, Eleven using her powers in broad daylight in the show baffled me, knowing how much they go through hiding her powers in the main show and her in general from the government. But back to Nikki and her mum, the crazier thing is making them directly linked to why there was a new creature that appeared in the first place, by Nikki's mum's boyfriend being someone who worked in Hawkins' lab, knowing these creatures and using her mum's research to experiment on them and cultivate more of them, which opens up another subunit of plot holes in the form of how differently Hawkins' lab is portrayed. Like, the party just breaks into the building at some point, free of any consequences, when we know that place of all places would be heavily surveillanced. It's almost as if the animated series goes out of its way to make no connection to the main show. And you simply can't do that when you're making a prequel to already existing characters and then adding new characters with insane plot relevance into the mix. Which brings me to my next point, which is the balance between the main show and the animated series. The animated series at certain points kind of has this weird disregard to past events tying into future events, and my biggest example of when this happened was actually when Max was defending Eleven and pushing for her to make her own decisions when it came to hunting those plant-like demogorgons. The thing is, Max and Eleven only got to know each other in season 3, and their relationship is made a pretty big deal because of it. So, from the events of season 2 to the events of Tales from 85 to season 3, there is now this very jarring setup of where you would think Eleven and Max are friends because of Tales from 85, but then we see them meeting and properly getting to know each other in season 3, and it is left with the most confusing... I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but I found that very weird, especially because of the fact that Eleven made it very apparent that she didn't like Max when she initially met her. So because of that, you would think that the writers would think to mention it just to acknowledge that this has happened, like maybe Max telling Eleven, "Oh, I thought you didn't like me," or something to that extent, but it's never addressed. This also happens with an even bigger issue being Eleven almost being exposed along with the plant demogorgons she was fighting, because during the fight, Dustin took a photo of Eleven, which ended up in the hands of Keith from the arcade, who took the picture from Lucas and Max and then sold it off to the Weekly Watcher newspaper, which then caused the party to come up with an elaborate plan to break into those offices and steal the photo back to make sure that Eleven isn't exposed and the government doesn't take her away. They get the photo back, destroy it, and then do absolutely nothing about Keith, who could possibly know what they're up to. Like, they didn't even go back to lie to him that it was a fake picture or anything, and it's just, again, never addressed. Another thing in relation to the two different shows is the animated show relying a lot on cartoonish whimsy, should I say. Like, for example, Nikki being this ingenious inventor and making a weapon strong enough to harm a gigantic demogorgon. That being set in the very real, well, quote-unquote real world of Stranger Things is just confusing, because what do you mean this 14-year-old or whatever could make weapons like this? At least the main show, we see the party modify actual weapons like guns and bats, and not straight up laser cannons and fire blasters. The crazy thing is that they could have fixed that and made Nikki like into pyrotechnics, so then she'd have like a freaking flamethrower she made out of old junk or something, just to make it seem more realistic. And to add on to the confusion of this cartoonish whimsy is Eleven's power scaling, should I say. Cause you're telling me Eleven was full on kicking ass at the age of like 13, but when face to face with the Mind Flayer, she had to train. And don't get me wrong, power scaling in itself is not the issue here. It's just that the fact that in Tales from 85, 11 is full on levitating in the air, and don't get me wrong, I thought the scene was sick as hell, but this I have to say is a glaringly huge issue when having thought of the concept of the show after the main one has ended, because it brings up such a huge continuity error when it comes to 11's powers before she loses them in season 3 and regains them to use in season 5. Because now, according to Tales from 85, 11 should be much more powerful if this is what she was doing at an even younger age. Which brings me to my next point of when coming face to face with the big bad of this animated series. You're telling me that 7 kids and 1 adult somehow took down a meat puppet-sized freaking Demogorgon without any government help or interference of a secret third thing. What? The main villainous creature in Tales from 85 is a large flower-like creature called the Queen that is acting like its own hive mind that is disconnected from the Upside Down and can open new gates. Not to mention, she's enormous, and the party just fold her. Like, granted, it is a long drawn-out battle, but I beg your finest pardon, this is before they encounter any actual physical threat, which is the meat puppet in season 3. And I knew this series was going to introduce new threats and take some creative liberties, but I wasn't expecting a full-on gigantic creature when the only things that the party have faced up until that point were demogorgons and demodogs, and I think it's just gonna be so jarring to see these characters in Tales from 85 compared to their live action counterparts and what they faced. That is to say, if the show is even canon, because even Will at one point in the animated series beats up a terrifying creature. Not to say that he couldn't ever do that, and I actually really liked that scene because of how good it looked, but is realism in the room with us? Now, realism wouldn't be an issue if Tales from 85 was its own separate spin-off with no direct correlation to the main series, showing the same exact characters being portrayed in a vastly different way. Which now leads me to my last con, which is this even canon? And if so, how? Because characters like Nikki and her mom who know about Al and her powers, like, where are they? I was expecting them to either get killed off, honestly, or leave Hawkins, but instead, they are currently staying in Hawkins with Nikki being a part of the party, as the show is seemingly being set up for a season 2. Final thoughts and conclusions. Stranger Things Tales from 85 is very reminiscent to me of Jurassic World's animated spin-off series Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory, which is set in the same universe as the Jurassic World movie franchise, but with a completely different cast of characters experiencing and being affected by the events that take place in the movie. And in all honesty, Stranger Things Tales from 85 fails to replicate that type of spin-off vibe because they do not want to sacrifice their, is it too early to say nostalgia plug since the show only ended now or recently? Do I experience the passage of time the same way? I don't know, but either way, to me, the story suffers from it because they did not want new faces into the franchise in fear that it wouldn't be as recognizable. Overall, in terms of the story, it was your pretty standard, tried and true Stranger Things blueprint of something goes wrong, a threat is introduced. The party investigates until the threat reveals itself to be from the Upside Down, leading to speculation of a gate being opened, finding out how to close it, Al screaming, and everyone lives. But in terms of execution, is really where the show shines, if you separate it from the main show, because none of these characters are anywhere near the same, especially if this is taking place way before the season finale. I think it's good that this series isn't necessary to watch and has no real bearing on the main show, unlike the first Shadow Play, which heavily influenced the direction of season 5. But in all honesty, and I really hope you give me grace on my opinion here, I am very hesitant to say that this was a completely bad show and that it was so unbearable to watch or something to that effect, because I feel like that would be disingenuous to my experience in watching it. I found it pleasant to watch, but I also know that it will not be the same for everyone, and I just don't want to come on here on my channel and lie and say that I didn't like the show when the whole point of this video is my analysis of it. I didn't go into this with high hopes of it saving the franchise for me, but I also didn't go into it expecting to hate it. I was simply just curious. I enjoyed the animation style and the little mystery solving vibes the show had to offer, and wasn't bothered by the dialogue choices.
Side quest thing I gotta do.
Side quest? Right.
Overall, if my video helps you want to watch the show or not is completely up to you. Hence why I made this video in the form of a pros and cons list, so you know what to do with your time. Like I mentioned before, this show could have worked as a spin-off with a completely different cast and leaned more into the mystery elements of the Upside Down. And I believe the thing holding the show back is that we've all seen who these characters grow up to become, so it kind of breaks the immersion when watching the show and seeing good moments of character development and bonds being made. Like, some moments had me sitting there feeling like, oh, that's so good, but Mike would never apologize for being a dumbass. It just broke my perception of the character. And my overall opinion is that if we really had to get an animated spin-off of the show with the same cast, I think it would have worked so much better if it was set in the events of when Vecna successfully opened the gates and destroyed Hawkins at the end of season 4. Like, think about it. With the animations and visuals, I think that the show would have given post-apocalyptic Hawkins the treatment it deserved without having to hold back on anything. A few more points I want to address before ending this video is that I've seen some posts around about how Tales from 85 is trying to make Malevolent look like it has always been written, and I just want to say that the Malevolent discourse doesn't really change anything for me personally, because we know how the show ends and how Mike actually treated Elle and let her down. The same goes for the Byla erasure as well, so for me personally, I wouldn't stress over it too much. I really like that we got to see some sweet moments between Will and Eleven, and also seeing Eleven being treated like a normal little girl, going out with her friends and not just being used for her powers. Overall, to me, Stranger Things Tales from 85 had a good premise if you're looking at the show at face value and just want to watch it to be entertained. But unfortunately, once you decide to dig deeper and question one thing, the entire show falls apart due to its continuity errors and wanting to be its own show while also wanting to have these already established characters. These two things simply don't mesh well because of how the Stranger Things universe has already been set up and how the animated series seems to break the rules the main series took time to establish, especially within the time frame of season 2 where everything was still a mystery. And with that, I really hope, and I mean I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Even if you disagree with me, I hope you can discuss it respectfully. And I just want to say that it has been too long since I made a video, and I want to say thank you to everyone who sent me your kind words and virtual hugs. I will be getting back to posting more regularly, especially to wrap up my Stranger Things content, but moving forward, do let me know what other shows or media you would like me to cover, and as always, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below so we can continue discussing this further. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.